All right, here we go. We've got another sign from these automakers showing that the demand for these big trucks, the demand for these vehicles that they're trying to sell, everything new, is just getting absolutely crushed. So GM just came out and said that they're going to offer voluntary layoffs for most of their salaried employees. What they're offering is up to a month for every year that they've been employed for up to 12 months. So that's a 12-year employee gets 12 months, and a 15-year employee gets 12 months, a 3-year employee gets 3 months. So that's what they're offering to their employees to voluntarily basically quit their job. And they've also already had a small round of layoffs, though they haven't disclosed the amount. They have announced that they have already started making layoffs. And their CEO came out and said that they are taking this step now. It will help avoid the potential for involuntary action. So what does that mean? That means that if they don't get enough people volunteer to be laid off and take this severance package, then they're actually going to have to start making mandatory layoffs because they know that down the road, their company is not going to grow. They don't need more workforce because the demand is getting crushed. They are actually going to have to increase their profit margins, meaning they're going to have to cut some employees. They're going to have to cut some expenses because they have to keep their profit margins high because they know going into this downturn that they're going to be selling less and less of these new trucks to consumers. Another thing that they have done recently, and as a few weeks ago that they announced that for 2 weeks they're going to shut down some plants that make these Silverados, they make these Sierras, because they don't want to overload the production line. They don't want to overload these vehicles that they're getting to these dealers because they just know that they're not going to be able to sell them. They're already stuffing these dealers full of trucks that they're not moving. We know that the interest rates are up. We know that they're doing these crazy dealer markups, and they're just having a hard time selling these trucks. Inflation is up, and they can't move these trucks. And we're seeing signs across the board of all these automakers just screaming that demand is down. We're going to have to make cuts. We have to increase our profit margins because we know that we're not going to be able to move these vehicles where we are right now. And guess what? The Fed just said interest rates are going up again. So it's not going to get any better for consumers. So we have a lose, lose, lose all across the board. The manufacturers, they can't be pushing out more vehicles to these franchise dealers, so they're going to have to cut production, meaning they're going to make less money in the coming quarters. These franchise dealers, they're getting pushed vehicles that they can't sell, so they have inventory now sitting on their lots that they're going to have to pay interest on if they can't move these vehicles. And you've got the customers that are coming in and wanting to buy these cars, but they can't afford them. The prices are too high, the interest rates are too high, the monthly payments are too high. Everything else that they're paying for in their lives is too expensive. They can't add on this average of $700 for a new car payment right now. And if you're looking at these trucks, when I'm talking about GM, when I'm talking about Ford, these F-150s, these Sierras, these Silverados, these are these auto manufacturers' bread and butter, and they are the most expensive things on the market right now. It used to be that the average American could go buy a truck and be able to afford it, but now they're bringing the same kind of money that these luxury vehicles are. And the people who want and need trucks to work, they can't afford luxury vehicles. And it's not just GM that are having these job cuts and having these problems with demand. Ford last year already cut 3,000 jobs, and they've already said that there's going to be more to come. These auto manufacturers, they know that demand is going down. GM has recently come out and said that they see no softening in the demand for their trucks. That is crap. They would not cut production. They would not be trying to cut their workforce. They would not be saying that we have to do this now so we don't have to do mandatory cuts later on. If they did not see any softening in the selling of their product and the selling of their trucks, they would not be making these moves right now to prepare for disaster later on. And the Fed is not helping. So interest rates going up even more. Demand is down already, and it's going to get worse. And I'm a used car dealer, so I know and I can see at these dealer auctions. When I go to these dealer auctions, how we get cars and how the cars are at these auctions are from new car dealer Franchises, they're trade-ins that they get in. So when they sell a car, when they get a trade-in for a car, that trade-in typically comes to the dealer auction where I am able to bid on it. I buy cars from GM, I buy cars from Ford dealers, I buy from Nissan dealers, Toyota dealers, all these dealers, these franchise dealers around my area, they bring these cars to all these auctions that I go to every week. And the actual amount of cars that are coming to these auctions is getting less and less and less and less. What does that tell me? Me as a used car dealer seeing this every week is that these new car dealers are not selling cars, because if they were, I'd be seeing more and more and more trade-ins coming in, and the trend is down and down and down and down. A lot of these auctions that I go to, they're down 50% of what they were just a couple years ago of the actual inventory that they're bringing in. That's just screaming to me that these franchise stores, they aren't selling any cars. GM, Ford, they are in trouble. They're not able to sell these trucks. And you know why? Because if you go on a Ford lot, if you go on a GM lot, you look at these F-150s, these Sierras, you look at these trucks, $60,000, $70,000, $80,000. And then if you're seeing high demand vehicles, these nice F-150s, I haven't been on a Ford lot yet that I've been able to see a Raptor. I haven't been able to see one of these like a Platinum F-150s, these nicer, higher end trucks. They all have market adjustments. You're not going to be able to sell these trucks and sell them in a high volume if these franchise dealers are trying to pump more money on top of these. And Ford's almost, though, it seems like every Ford dealership I go to, and it's almost every higher end model or anything that's halfway desirable. The Mach-E's, they have market adjustments. Raptors have market adjustments. A lot of the F-150s have market adjustments. I mean, you're seeing, you're not even really finding any Mavericks. You're not seeing a ton of Broncos, although we're seeing a lot more Broncos recently than we have been. But they're still having market adjustments. And they're just sitting on these lots and they're not selling them. And they're not going to, because people can't afford them. They can't afford them monthly payments. So if they're already being squeezed when they go in to try to get a loan for these vehicles, and then they're seeing these market adjustments on top of what they're going to have to pay per month, it just leaves such a sour taste in people's mouth when they're dealing with these franchise dealers. So I've said it before and I'll say it again. These franchise dealers are killing your process, Ford. They're killing your process, GM. If they're going in and they're adding these crazy market adjustments on top of these vehicles, you're not going to sell cars. And it's really going to come down to hurting your brand, hurting your legacy, because you're losing the trust of your consumers when they're having to pay this much for a truck. And they think it's worth X amount. They think it's worth $60,000. And they're end up having to pay at the end of the day, when they get the out-the-door price, $85,000. I've seen market adjustments of $35,000 on some of these trucks, and that's just crazy. You're going to lose customers, and your franchise dealers are the problems. So at the end of the day, if Ford, if GM, if they aren't able to produce these trucks for lower amounts and get them to their franchise dealers for lower amounts, and they aren't able to keep their franchise dealers from charging crazy markups on these trucks, then they're just not going to sell them. And it's hurting the whole market right now. I think the biggest problem is the franchise dealers. I think the auto manufacturers, they are producing these trucks for way too much money, but then you're adding on these crazy fees that these dealers are trying to charge. It's just lose-lose everywhere. So the manufacturers are losing money because they're not able to pump out enough trucks to be able to really sell the volume that they need. And that's why they have to keep their prices high, because they have to keep their profit margins up, because these franchise dealers aren't selling enough trucks. The franchise dealers are losing because they're getting in more trucks than they can sell right now. On average right now, the last numbers that I saw for Ford, they were sitting at 90, 100 days on a lot of these trucks. And the sweet spot that they like to sit in is that 50 to 60 day range. So that means they're going to be paying even more interest on these trucks that are sitting on their lots, meaning that they're going to have to charge more for them to try to get the money that they're losing from having to pay their payments on the interest that's coming up from these trucks sitting on their lots. The consumer's losing because it costs way too much money to buy these trucks. They're not getting any kind of trade-in value, and they're having to pay this crazy amount of interest, higher monthly payments. Higher inflation means everything costs more, so they're going to be less likely to want to upgrade to buy a new truck. And small used car dealers like myself, we're suffering right now because the lack of trade-ins coming from these new car dealers to the auctions. And that's not going to get any better until these new car dealers start selling more cars. And that can't happen unless they lower their prices or interest rates go way down so the monthly payments become more affordable for the average American. So you need a lot of things to happen for pricing to get better for Ford and GM to be able to sell more trucks. And it's going to come down to really just lowering prices, and you're going to have to get lower interest rates. And right now, the lower interest rates is not going to happen anytime soon. The Fed has already said higher for longer. That's their motto right now, and that's what they're going to keep doing until inflation gets helped. And these franchise dealers, they're still stuck in the last 2 years where they think that they can get just the world for everything that they put on their lot, and they're going to absolutely get hammered in the next few months, the next 6 months, the next year, if they don't change their ways and start lowering their prices, because these consumers, they're not going to pay it anymore. And we're seeing it right now. GM is sounding the alarm bells. They're making cuts. They want to make cuts. And what's probably going to end up happening is after these voluntary cuts, you get a couple quarters down the road and demand's not any better, they're going to have to make mandatory cuts. Ford's already doing it. You're going to see it from a lot of these other auto manufacturers because they're not going to be able to push out these vehicles. And at the end of the day, interest rates have to go down. It's not happening anytime soon. Prices have to come down. These dealers, these franchise dealers, even if the manufacturers bring down the MSRPs, they're still going to add these dealer markups in this day and age right now, because they are just fueling themselves off the greed of what they are able to make in the past years. And these franchise dealers, they have to keep their profit margins up now too. They have expenses and they're selling less vehicles, so they have to make more per vehicle right now if they're going to sell less. So there's just a lot of things that have to happen for these prices to come down, for GM and Ford to be able to start pushing out some more of their trucks. And I don't think a lot of this is going to happen anytime soon. And somebody's going to get hurt, and it's probably going to be the Ford and GM shareholders. It's probably going to be these franchise dealers. And I know a lot of the used car dealers are going to get hurt because we're just not getting the inventory, and the used car prices are staying so elevated. So all that to say is that if you're in the market to buy a new vehicle, so we're seeing all these auto manufacturers, they are screaming with the things that they're doing, do not buy, because they know the prices are going to have to come down for them to be able to actually sell anything. They're making preparations to have a slower time. That means these franchise dealers are going to get squeezed, and it's just going to take time. I know I get it a lot in the comments. You've been saying this forever and ever. Everybody on YouTube has been saying this forever and ever and ever. Bubbles take a long time to deflate. You have to just wait and be patient. I know you don't want to be patient. I don't want to be patient either. I like to buy cars. I want to buy something new for myself too. But we have to wait it out. A lot of these pieces have to fall for these franchise dealers to start cutting their prices and rolling these vehicles out again. They're still stuck in their old ways, and it will change, but you have to be patient. It's not going to happen tomorrow. It's not going to happen in a month, but there's going to be a meaningful drop down because they just can't keep going the way they are and think that they're going to make money. So stay patient, and I hope you have a great day.